The wind howls across the barren hills, thick with the bitter taste of salt and dust. It grips the flesh like a freezing hand, biting through the layers of cloth that hang loosely from their shoulders. The soldiers stand like statues, silent, worn, and weary, but their eyes are alive. They are the last of their kind, the final defenders of Numantia. The gates of the city, cracked and splintered, groan under the weight of 1,000 years of history, each stone holding the memory of defiance. Inside, there is only silence now, the kind that presses against the soul and smothers hope. The sun is low, casting long shadows over the ruined streets, and the smell of burning wood clings to the air. It is a scent that will never fade, a reminder that once this city was alive with the laughter of children, the cries of merchants hawking wares, the rhythms of a people who loved the earth beneath their feet. But now, that life has been reduced to the flickering light of a dying flame. The Romans are on the march. The walls of the city, once strong and proud, have fallen to ruin under their relentless siege. The Numantian heart, so full of fire and fury, is on the brink of extinguishment. Through the smoke and dust, a figure emerges, tall and gaunt, his face a mask of ash and exhaustion. His name was once known to the people who lived and died within these walls. He was a warrior, a protector, a symbol of their enduring resistance. But today, he is merely a shadow, a relic of the past, who will soon be erased by time. His sword is a weight in his hand, yet he holds it firm, the grip worn smooth by years of use. It is the last weapon of a dying people, and with it, he will stand until the end. He surveys the city one last time, taking in the sight of the cracks that have formed in the stone buildings, the crumbling roofs, the blood-stained earth where countless bodies have fallen. In his chest, there is no longer room for fear. Fear died the moment he first laid eyes on the Roman legions. No, it is not fear that gnaws at his heart now. It is a deep, aching sorrow. For the city that birthed him, for the people he fought beside, for the blood of his ancestors that has soaked into the ground beneath him. And yet, in the heart of that sorrow, there is a spark of something else. A fire, small but relentless. It burns against the chill of the wind, against the weight of hopelessness, against the certainty of death. It is not a desire for victory. No, that has long since vanished. It is the desire to resist, to fight even in the face of annihilation. For what is a man if not a reflection of the struggle itself? If he must die, let it be with the sword in his hand. Let it be with the dignity of a man who defied an empire. The Romans, so close now, so eager to crush what little is left, are unaware of the price of this victory. They believe the walls of Numantia will fall with the same ease as any other city. But they do not know the heart of its people. They do not understand that the flame of resistance is not so easily extinguished. Even as the Roman legions tighten their grip, even as the walls crumble beneath the weight of their siege, the Numantians fight with a fury that comes not from the hope of survival, but from the belief that in dying, they will forever remain unbowed. And so the battle continues. The clang of iron against iron echoes through the streets, the blood of the fallen staining the earth beneath their feet. Yet even in the face of this chaos, there is a stillness in the hearts of the defenders, a peace that comes from knowing they are fighting for something greater than themselves. They are fighting for a story that will live on, even when their bodies are no longer there to tell it. And when the dust settles, when the Roman banners fly over the city, it is this story that will endure. There is a silence in the aftermath, a deep and aching quiet that hangs over the ruins of Numantia like a shroud. The Romans have claimed the city, but they have not claimed its soul. That has slipped away with the last of the defenders, who, though their names are forgotten, will forever be remembered in the hearts of those who know what it means to resist. And in the silence that follows, the city speaks its final words, not of defeat, but of defiance. For even in death, it has lived, and that the Romans could never take away. But time is cruel. As the years stretch on, the memory of Numantia fades. The stones that once held the lives of a proud people are forgotten, buried beneath the march of empire. The city is lost to history, not in the flames of battle, but in the slow erosion of memory. Yet, deep in the hearts of those who still hear the whispers of this place, Numantia lives on. It is a story of courage and sacrifice, a story of a people who, though their names were lost, were never truly forgotten. It is a story that will rise from the ashes, as enduring as the spirit of the land itself. And in the end, when the Romans have long since passed into myth, the legacy of Numantia will endure. Not in the pages of history books or the annals of conquerors, but in the souls of those who understand that some flames never die. They only wait to be rekindled. The story of Numantia is a story of resistance, one that will echo through the centuries, long after the last warrior has fallen. In the final moments, as the Romans press on and the last echoes of the resistance fade, there is only the wind, the same wind that has swept across the plains since the dawn of time. It carries with it the faintest scent of smoke, the bitter taste of defiance, and the knowledge that even in death, the flame will never be fully extinguished. The fight may be over, but the story lives on, written in the blood of the brave and the broken. The air hangs heavy with the scent of smoke. The ground beneath the feet of the defenders cracked and crumbling, like the very spirit of their once proud city. It is the dusk of a civilization. From the shattered walls of Numantia, the last breath of defiance rises like a silent prayer. The cries of the wounded have long since faded into the distant hills, swallowed by the wind that carries with it the weight of empires. The Roman legions stand poised, their helmets glinting in the dying light, yet they hesitate. There is something here, something in the air that resists them. An invisible force that will not yield, no matter how many times the battering ram strikes the gates. It is the spirit of a people who have already made their peace with death, for they know that to surrender would be to lose their very soul. In the heart of the city, where the last few defenders gather, in the shadow of crumbled homes and broken memories, the silence is a heavy cloak. They stand together, shoulders hunched to the chill of the evening, their faces marked by the dust of 1,000 days under siege. Their eyes, once filled with the fire of rebellion, now seem distant, weary with the weight of their choices. A prayer is whispered among them, low and hoarse. It is not a prayer for victory, for they know that victory is a dream already dashed. It is a prayer for their ancestors, for the blood that courses through their veins, and for the dignity they have clung to in this last stand. A stand not for land, nor for riches, but for the spirit that cannot be crushed by the weight of an empire. And yet, in this moment, there is no fear. Fear has been burned away like the smoke of 1,000 fires, replaced instead by something far stronger, a resolve that is both ancient and eternal. These men and women are not mere soldiers, not merely survivors. They are the last of a people who believed that their dignity, their freedom, was worth the price of death. And though they know the Roman army will soon breach their defenses, though they know that the end is inevitable, their hearts beat with a quiet fury. They will not go easily into the night. Not while there is still breath in their bodies. Not while the land they fought for still calls to them like a whisper in the wind. As the Romans press forward, the clang of their swords and shields rings out, echoing through the narrow streets, where once children played and laughter filled the air. The sound is deafening, a constant reminder of the end that draws nearer. And yet, within this noise, there is another sound, the sound of something quieter, something more sacred. It is the sound of a woman's voice, rising from within the city, the last hymn sung in defiance. Her voice, though soft, carries the weight of generations. It speaks not of surrender, but of remembrance, of a people who once lived, who once loved, who once fought. The Romans do not hear her, but the earth beneath her feet does. It feels the echo of her words, and in its silent depths it stirs. But the Romans are relentless, and the walls of Numantia begin to crumble. The earth trembles beneath the heavy footfalls of their legions, and the final assault begins. It is a blur of motion, of blood, of bodies falling in silence, as the city that once stood as a beacon of hope is swallowed whole by the tides of war. Yet even in these final moments, the spirit of Numantia does not fade. It lingers in the air, in the dust that rises with each strike of the battering ram. It lingers in the hearts of the defenders, who, even as they fall, carry with them the memory of what they stood for. Not for victory, but for honor, for a fight that was never meant to be won, only fought. The last warrior stands alone, his sword still gripped tightly in his hands. His breath comes in ragged gasps, his body covered in blood and ash, his face set in the grim determination of a man who has seen the end of his world. He does not run. He does not yield. For what is there left to do but face the end with courage? The Romans close in on him, their spears glinting like the very instruments of fate, but in his heart, he is already gone. He has given everything: his life, his loyalty, his spirit. The last vestiges of Numantia have died with him, but the fire that once burned so brightly in this city will never be extinguished. As the Romans enter, the city is silent, save for the crackling of the fires that burn across the ruins. The great city of Numantia is no more, reduced to rubble, its legacy trampled under the boots of conquerors. Yet in the ashes, there is still something that lingers, something that refuses to be erased. It is the memory of defiance, the quiet but unyielding belief that, in dying, the Numantians have not lost everything. They have given themselves to a cause that will outlast the walls of this city, outlast the Roman legions, and echo through the annals of history. The wind howls through the empty streets, carrying with it the final whispers of a people long gone. The Romans, though they have conquered the city, cannot conquer its memory. And though Numantia is lost to time, its story remains. For in every land, in every corner of the world, there are those who resist. There are those who, even when faced with the inevitability of death, choose to stand. They may fall, they may be forgotten, but their story will never be silenced. It will echo, faint but eternal, through the centuries. As the Romans claim their victory, as the banners of empire rise over the ruins of Numantia, a question lingers in the air. What is it that we truly fight for? Is it land, power, glory? Or is it something more, something deeper, something that no empire, no army can ever take away? The Numantians fought not for conquest, but for dignity. And though their bodies may lie broken in the dust, their spirit will rise, as enduring as the land itself. The question now is not whether they won or lost. It is whether we remember them at all. The last rays of the sun burn through the blackened sky, casting an eerie, blood-red glow across the ruins of Numantia. The once vibrant streets, where children's laughter echoed and merchants called their wares to the passing crowd, now lay silent and lifeless. The distant sound of Roman boots thunders against the cobbled streets, each step a reminder of the empire's relentless march. But it is not the clamor of the Romans that fills the air now. No, it is something far quieter, far more tragic. The last breath of a city, inhaled by the wind, is the only sound that remains. A figure stands in the shadow of a broken column, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where the Roman legions gather in grim formation. His face is weathered by years of warfare, but there is still a fire behind his eyes, one that refuses to be extinguished, even in the face of certain defeat. His hand tightens around the hilt of his sword, its blade dulled from countless battles, its edge now a symbol of a struggle that is almost over. He is a man out of time, a relic of a bygone age, a guardian of a dying people. And yet, there is no sorrow in his heart. There is only a quiet resolve. He knows that the end is near. But in that knowledge, he also understands something else, that the flame of Numantia will never be fully snuffed out, not while there are still men and women like him who refuse to forget. Behind him, the remnants of the city's defenders gather, their faces grim and hollow, their bodies worn to the bone by hunger and the constant, unrelenting siege. Their numbers have dwindled, and their spirits have, too, begun to waver. Yet there is no retreat, no surrender. These are the last of the Numantians, and though they are exhausted, though they are broken, they will not bow before the Romans, not while they still draw breath. Among them stands a young woman, her face pale and smeared with the dust of 1,000 days under siege. She is not a warrior, but she has become one in these final hours. Her fingers, once soft and delicate, now grip a dagger, a tool she has learned to wield with the same precision as any soldier. Her eyes, wide and filled with a haunting clarity, follow the movements of the Roman legions. There is no fear in her gaze, only an understanding of the inevitability that awaits them all. Yet, like the others, she refuses to speak of surrender. Instead, she whispers a prayer to the gods of her ancestors, hoping against hope that the gods will understand their sacrifice, even if history never will. As the sun sinks lower in the sky, the Romans draw closer. Their siege engines groan as they are rolled into position. The earth beneath them trembles with the force of the empire's might. And yet, within the walls of Numantia, there is only silence. A silence that echoes with the weight of history. It is the silence of a city that has seen its final day. The silence of a people who have given everything for the belief that their freedom, their dignity, was worth dying for. The gates of Numantia, once a symbol of pride and resistance, now stand shattered, their timbers broken by the battering rams that have relentlessly pounded at them for days. The city's defenders gather at the crumbling walls, their eyes fixed on the incoming storm. It is not fear that fills their hearts, but something far older, far deeper. A longing for the past, for the land that nurtured them, for the ancestors whose blood runs through their veins. It is the kind of longing that cannot be quenched. No matter how many times the gates are breached, no matter how many walls fall, they will never surrender that part of themselves. And so they fight. The battle that follows is one of noise, of fury, of the clashing of steel and the cries of the fallen. The air is thick with the scent of blood, sweat, and the acrid stench of fire. The Roman legions push forward, their weapons flashing like silver in the last light of the day. Yet, no matter how many they cut down, no matter how many they trample beneath their boots, the defenders refuse to yield. They do not fight for victory anymore, but for something more profound. They fight for their dignity, for the memory of those who came before them, for the people they were. And in the chaos of battle, they fight for the hope that their story, however brief, will not be forgotten. As the Romans flood the streets of the city, the defenders retreat into the shadows, their numbers dwindling with every passing hour. The young woman, whose hands are now stained with the blood of both friend and foe, takes one last look at the city she has sworn to protect. Her heart aches, not with fear, but with the bittersweet understanding that what they have fought for will never be remembered in the halls of power. The world will move on. The Romans will conquer. And Numantia, with all its defiance, will fade into the dust. And yet, there is a flicker of light in the darkness, a small, quiet act of rebellion. One last stand, not of the body, but of the soul. As the city falls, as the Romans press forward and the defenders retreat into the night, the flame that has burned within Numantia refuses to die. It is not the end of a people, but the beginning of a story that will echo through the centuries. It will be remembered, not in the annals of Rome, but in the hearts of those who, long after, will look back on the fall of this city and find there's something worth fighting for. In the final moments, as the Roman banner rises above the crumbling ruins, there is a question that hangs in the air. What is the price of freedom? The answer, buried beneath the rubble of Numantia, will never be fully understood. But for those who know the cost, for those who have paid it with their blood, there is only one certainty. Some things, no matter how fleeting, can never be conquered. Some things, like the spirit of a people, cannot be destroyed. And though Numantia may be gone, it will never be forgotten. As the last of the defenders fall, the city is silent once more. But in that silence, there is a song that will rise from the ashes as enduring as the spirit of the land itself. It is the story of those who chose to resist when all hope was lost. And in that resistance, they found a kind of immortality. The air is thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning wood. The once proud city of Numantia, its towering walls now reduced to jagged remnants, shivers in the last gasp of twilight. Through the dense, choking haze, the distant thud of Roman drums echoes, an ominous rhythm that signifies both the end and the beginning of something far greater than war. The sun sinks, casting the landscape in a deep crimson, as though the earth itself bleeds beneath the weight of this ancient battle. A single figure steps forward from the shadows. His cloak, once vibrant with the symbols of his city, is now a tattered ghost of its former self, stained with the grime of endless days under siege. He is the last of his kind, a guardian standing at the precipice of history's final judgment. His eyes, dark and piercing, stare ahead, not in fear, but in quiet defiance. Around him, the echoes of dying voices fade into the wind, lost in the growing roar of Roman conquest. But in his heart, there is still something that burns, a flicker of resolve that refuses to die. The world seems to hold its breath as he grips his sword, the worn handle smooth from years of battle. It is a weapon that has served him well, but now it feels heavy in his hands, not with the weight of the metal, but with the weight of his people's hopes. They have given everything for this moment. They have fought not for victory, but for survival, not for glory, but for the sanctity of their way of life. They have resisted the Roman legions, pushed them to the brink of exhaustion. But now, as the gates of Numantia finally crumble, they know this is the end. The young warrior's heart beats with the sound of the siege. His mind races, not with thoughts of surrender, but with memories of the life he has fought to protect. Memories of the soil that nurtured him, of the homes that once rang with the laughter of his people. Yet, even as the Romans press closer, he cannot help but remember the stories told by the elders. Stories of heroes, of those who faced impossible odds and still found a way to resist. These stories, now becoming his own, hold the power to transcend time. For in their defeat, they will be remembered. Behind him, there are others, fewer now, their faces hollow with hunger, their bodies weak from endless days of battle. But still, they stand. Their resolve is like the cold stone of their walls, unyielding, even in the face of ruin. They have not yet surrendered their dignity. There is no retreat in them, only an understanding that this fight, this struggle, is the last vestige of what it means to be free. The world may forget their names, but they will never forget this moment, this final stand. The city is a fortress of memories. The wind carries the remnants of what once was, a fragrance of blooming flowers, the warmth of a mother's embrace, the strength of a father's hand. But it is fleeting, slipping through the cracks like sand through fingers. The city of Numantia, like its people, will not be remembered in the annals of Rome's glory. Yet there is something more powerful than history that is at stake here, the spirit of a people who chose not to submit, even when all hope was lost. The Romans may take the land, but they cannot take the soul of Numantia. As the Roman forces press forward, the noise of war begins to build, shouts of victory mingling with the desperate cries of the defenders. The clash of swords against shields rings out like thunder, filling the streets with a terrible harmony of destruction. Yet amidst this cacophony, there is a strange peace, a stillness that blankets the city like an unseen hand. The Numantians fight not just to defend their homes, but to preserve a truth that is slowly being forgotten by the world. That truth is simple. Some things, some people, cannot be measured by the weight of conquest. They are immortal in the way that legends are, in the way that heroes are. But the tide is undeniable. The Romans advance, their legions unstoppable, their fury unmatched. The gates have fallen. The walls, once proud and defiant, are now mere rubble beneath their boots. The warriors of Numantia, brave but outnumbered, are driven back. The end is inevitable, as it always has been for those who stand against the tide of empire. And yet, even in these final moments, they do not falter. They do not bow. They stand as they have always stood, together, unbroken and defiant. The young warrior faces the oncoming wave of Roman soldiers, his breath shallow, his sword heavy in his hand. His heart pounds in his chest, but it is not from fear. No. There is something else, something that no empire can quench. It is the weight of his ancestors' blood, of the very earth beneath his feet, of the land that once belonged to his people. In his final stand, he knows one truth. They will be remembered, not because they won, but because they refused to be forgotten. As the Romans overrun the city, the last of the defenders fall, their bodies scattered like broken reeds in a field. The young warrior's eyes close, not in sorrow, but in peace. His story, like those who came before him, will now be carried by the wind, through the ages, through the cracks in history, and into the hearts of those who understand the true cost of resistance. The Romans may have claimed the city, but they have not claimed its spirit. That spirit will live on forever, carried on the breath of the earth, as enduring as the soil that bore them. And so, Numantia falls. The city is no more. The Roman legions march triumphantly through its streets, their banners waving proudly in the wind. But as the dust settles, as the fires burn down to embers, there is a quiet truth that remains. History is never truly written by the victors. It is written in the stories we tell, in the memory of those who fought, in the spirits that refuse to die. The last warrior's name may be lost to time, but his defiance, his courage, will live forever. And as the Romans raise their banners over the ashes of Numantia, they too, unknowingly, become part of a story far greater than their own. a story of resistance, of sacrifice, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. This story, though silenced in the face of empire, will rise again in whispers, in legends, and in the hearts of those who understand what it truly means to fight for something more than survival. As the last echoes of battle fade, the winds of Numantia continue to blow across the barren fields, carrying with them the legacy of a people who chose to resist, not for victory, but for something far more sacred. And in the end, that is what will endure. That is what will always remain. The sky over Numantia is bruised, darkening as though the heavens themselves mourn the coming loss. The air is thick with the weight of what is to come, an oppressive stillness, broken only by the distant rumble of Roman drums. The earth, soaked with the blood of countless defenders, trembles with each step the enemy takes. It is the end of an era, the final hour of a people whose names will soon be lost to the ruthless march of time. In the silence between the drumbeats, there is a moment of haunting clarity. The heart of the city, once vibrant with life, now beats for the last time. Amidst the smoke and ruins, the last remnants of Numantia's defenders gather, their faces drawn and grim with the realization that they are but shadows of the warriors they once were. Their weapons, their pride, all seem so small in the face of the empire's unyielding might. And yet, as the Romans tighten their grip, something stirs within them, a quiet fire that will not be extinguished by the weight of the world. This is their city. This is their land. And though it may fall, it will not fall quietly. A lone figure steps forward, his silhouette casting a long shadow across the broken stone. He is a warrior, but there is no longer strength in his limbs. The battle has drained him of youth and hope, but not of courage. His sword, once a gleaming blade, now lies heavy in his grip, its edge dulled by years of conflict. His eyes, though tired, are sharp. They take in the ruins around him, the broken homes, the forgotten graves, the empty streets that once teemed with the pulse of life. Each broken piece is a memory. Each crack in the stone, a story that will fade with the fall of the city. Yet, there is still something in his chest that will not yield, something that says he will stand as long as breath remains in his body. Behind him, his companions, the last of the Numantians, begin to gather. Their movements are slow, weary, but there is no surrender in their eyes. Each one, a soldier, a mother, a father, a child, each one has lost something in this fight. They are the final echoes of a civilization that once stood proud, but they are not defeated. Not yet. Not while they still breathe. The city, though broken, still holds a beauty that defies the hands of the Romans. The crumbling walls and the shattered streets tell a story of resilience, of a people who fought not for riches, but for something far more precious, their way of life. The warriors of Numantia know this truth as they prepare for their final stand. It is not glory they seek, not honor, but the preservation of their spirit. For when all is lost, when the body lies broken, it is the soul that remains. And the soul of Numantia will never be taken. As the Roman legions advance, the defenders tighten their formation, the tension building with each passing moment. The air is thick with the stench of sweat and fear, but there is no turning back. The first wave of soldiers crashes against the walls, their swords ringing out in the night. The city shakes beneath the weight of their assault, but the Numantians stand firm. Their blades meet Roman steel with the sound of thunder, a clash that fills the streets with the raw energy of survival. The ground beneath them is soaked with blood, Roman and Numantian alike, but they do not flinch. The sound of battle is deafening, the clang of metal against metal, the cries of the fallen, the rhythmic pulse of war drums in the distance. All of it becomes a blurred cacophony in the hearts of those who remain. But amidst this chaos, there is a strange peace. The peace of knowing that they have done everything in their power, that even in defeat, they have held on to the one thing the Romans cannot take, their dignity. As the Romans press forward, the battle begins to shift. The defenders are fewer now, their strength fading as the hours stretch into endless night. The walls they once held so dearly are crumbling, and with them, the last hope of survival. Yet even as the tide turns, there is no panic in their eyes. There is only the quiet understanding that this fight, this last stand, is their final gift to the generations that will follow. The stories of Numantia, of those who stood, will not be forgotten, even if their bodies are scattered across the fields. In the final moments, As the Romans breach the gates, the defenders fight not as warriors, but as the last witnesses to a world on the verge of disappearing. The sound of swords cutting through the air is replaced by the more haunting sound of silence, the silence that follows the fall of a people. The city, now lost, becomes a graveyard for dreams. And yet, even as the Roman banners rise above the rubble, there is something enduring in the ashes. For the memory of what has been lost is never truly forgotten. It lingers like a whisper on the wind, carried by those who remember. The last warrior stands alone, his sword now broken, his body spent. His gaze sweeps across the battlefield, taking in the sight of his fallen comrades, of the broken city that has given everything for a cause that will never be recognized. There is no triumph in this moment, no sense of victory, only the quiet, unshakable knowledge that they have given all they had. And for that, they are immortal. As the Roman legions secure the city, the smoke of battle rises into the sky, black and heavy. The banners of Rome flutter in the wind, but the spirit of Numantia, though now silent, still holds the land. The soldiers who have fallen, the sacrifices that have been made, cannot be erased. History will remember, not in the words written by emperors, but in the hearts of those who will pass down the story of Numantia, a story of defiance, of dignity, of an unbroken will to resist. The flames of the final siege die slowly, their embers still flickering in the quiet aftermath. And as the Romans take their victory, the question lingers in the cold night air. What is the true cost of empire? The answer, buried beneath the stone and dust, will never be fully understood. But for those who remember, for those who still hear the faintest whispers of the last stand of Numantia, the cost is clear. As the city falls into darkness, one final image remains. A torch flickering in the wind, its light casting long shadows across the broken stone. It is the last light of a people who chose to resist, not for victory, but for something far greater. And that light, though dim, will never be extinguished. It will burn quietly in the hearts of those who understand that some flames cannot be put out, no matter how many storms may come. The darkness settles over the battlefield like a shroud, blanketing the land in silence. The distant howl of wind whispers through the broken ruins of Numantia, stirring the dust and ash that still cling to the jagged stones. The city, once full of life and pride, now lies abandoned, its pulse extinguished by the heavy footfall of Roman legions. Their banners flutter triumphantly in the cold night air, marking the end of an era. But within the shadows, a lingering presence remains, a faint, rebellious spirit that refuses to be crushed by the weight of empire. Amidst the crumbling walls and scattered remnants of homes, a single figure moves with quiet grace, his every step resonating with the weight of 1,000 lost lives. His face is etched with the scars of battle, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. But there is a fire in his gaze, a spark that has not been extinguished. He is the last of his kind, the final guardian of a city that will soon be forgotten by all but those who remember the heart that once beat here. His name is Avarice. He is a warrior, but not by choice. War has consumed his life, leaving him a shadow of the man he once was. But even now, as the dust settles and the Roman forces claim their victory, he knows that his fight is not yet over. His city may have fallen, but the spirit of Numantia, of those who fought, of those who loved, of those who died, will never be silenced. He pauses for a moment at the top of the hill, gazing down at the broken city below. The wind carries the faint scent of smoke, mingling with the bitter taste of ash. There is no sound now but the haunting whistle of the breeze. Even the birds have fled, leaving the sky empty, as though the heavens themselves mourn the fall of a proud civilization. Avarice knows that the Romans will sweep through the streets, claiming what is left. The fires of war will consume all that remains of Numantia. And yet, despite it all, he stands tall, unbroken. He thinks of his people, the mothers, the fathers, the children who once ran through these streets. He thinks of the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the courage that kept them standing even when the odds seemed insurmountable. They knew, as he knows now, that their fight was never about victory. It was about something far more sacred, the preservation of their dignity. And in this quiet moment, as the Roman legions march closer, Avarice realizes that this will always be their legacy. Not the victory of an empire, but the strength of a people who fought not for glory, but for their very soul. In the fading light, he reaches for the sword at his side, his fingers brushing the cold steel. It is worn, its edge dulled by years of use, but still sharp enough to cut through the silence. He grips it tightly, as if drawing strength from the weapon that has carried him through countless battles. It is not just a sword. It is a symbol of everything he has lost, everything he has fought to protect. As the Roman soldiers draw near, their armor glinting in the moonlight, Avarice takes one last look at the city he has sworn to defend. The walls are broken, the streets are empty, but the spirit of Numantia still lingers in the air. It is a quiet, unspoken promise, a vow that no matter how many times the Romans march across this land, they will never conquer the heart of the people who once called it home. The ground beneath him trembles with the approach of the enemy. The sound of Roman boots on the dirt road fills the air, an inexorable march that drowns out all other noise. The time for retreat has long since passed. There is no escape, no surrender. Avarice and his comrades, what few remain, will face the Romans head-on, as they always have. They will fight until the very end, not for land, not for power, but for the honor of standing firm against an empire that knows no mercy. The battle that follows is a blur of motion, of steel clashing against steel, of the cries of the fallen echoing across the empty streets. The defenders fight with the desperation of those who know they have already lost, but also with the fury of those who refuse to die in silence. Avarice moves through the chaos with purpose, his sword flashing through the night, cutting down Roman soldiers one by one. But the tide is turning. The Romans, though fewer in number, are relentless, their discipline unmatched by the scattered remnants of Numantia's defenders. In the heart of the battle, Avarice comes face to face with a Roman captain, a man whose eyes are as cold as the steel of his blade. They lock eyes for a moment, two warriors caught in the cruel dance of war. Avarice feels the weight of history pressing down on him, the weight of every man and woman who has died for this moment. And in that fleeting instant, he understands something that transcends this battlefield, this war. It is not about who wins or who loses. It is about who will be remembered. With a final cry, Avarice charges, his sword raised high. But the captain is faster, his blade finding its mark. Avarice falls to the ground, his breath ragged, his life slipping away with the blood that stains the earth beneath him. As his vision fades, he sees the faces of those who have come before him, his ancestors, his comrades, his people. They are not gone. They live on in the soil, in the wind, in the stories that will be passed down through the generations. As the battle rages on, the Romans claim victory. They march through the streets, their banners flying high over the ruins of Numantia. The city that once stood as a symbol of resistance is no more. But in the silence that follows, there is a flicker of light, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming force, some things cannot be conquered. The spirit of Numantia, though buried beneath the rubble, will rise again in the hearts of those who remember. And so, the question lingers in the air. What is truly lost in the face of empire? The land? The city? The people? No. What is lost is the story of those who stood, who fought, who loved. That story, though obscured by the smoke of battle, will never be forgotten. It will live on, carried by the wind, whispered by the earth. For Numantia, though it may have fallen, will never truly be gone. And in the end, as the Roman banners rise over the ashes of the city, Avarice's final thought lingers in the wind. Some flames cannot be extinguished. They burn eternally in the hearts of those who choose to remember.